I'm Jason Edel Petitfrel. I'm Logistics Specialist 3rd Class aboard the USS Constitution.
My name is Michael J. Wicker. I'm a seaman assigned to the Repair Division of the USS Constitution.
My name is Jordan Young, and I'm a Personnel Specialist 3rd Class.
And my name is Seaman Anna Tomek, and I also work in repair over here at the USS Constitution.
So you might be wondering why we're all aboard in our 1812 uniform of the era during the War of 1812 for the United States Navy. So today we are celebrating an amazing event, the 222nd year of the USS Constitution's career. Alright, so this very ship right here that we're staying on right now, you can visit at any point in time of the hours between Wednesday through Sunday from 10 to 5 p.m. That's our winter hours. You can check that out on our Facebook and our Instagram alike. But today we're talking about the undefeated history that this ship has been through throughout the years. Alright, and to start that off, I'll be walking you through the launching of the ship. And then my fellow shipmates here will be talking to you about some of the more exciting battles that this ship has been a part of, including the battle versus the HMS Guerrière, the Java, and an instance in which we faced off against 2 British ships at the same time. You'll be hearing more on that later. So let's talk about the beginnings of the Navy. We'll be walking this way for that. So let's talk about why we actually needed the Navy. Alright, so one word, pirates. Okay, so more specifically, the Barbary Corsairs. And they came out of the four countries out of the northwestern coast of Africa: Tripoli, Tunis, Algiers, and Morocco. Now, why was that important? We didn't have a navy at the time. Okay, so our continental navy that we had during the Revolution was actually sold off to pay for our debts at the time. And so we had no navy to defend our merchant ships across the world. Now, let's go right over here and we'll talk about the actual launching of the USS Constitution. So, across the way right over there is where the old Edmund Hart shipyard used to be back then, and which is currently Coast Guard Base Boston. Alright, so that's where the Constitution was launched in 1797. So in 1794, though, that's when George Washington was allowed to sign the act to provide a naval armament. This gave the government permission to tax the people for a budget to build the first 6 frigates, of which the Constitution is the 3rd. So how'd the launching go? September 20th, 1797, Constitution was ready to go, built, completed. She was ready to hit the water, oh so graciously, or majestically, whichever word you prefer. Alright, so everybody was gathered around. Even the president at the time, John Adams himself, he was here in the harbor, eagerly awaiting this event to happen. And so, with bated breath, they counted down. 3, 2, 1! Cracked the bottle across the bow, kicked the keel blocks out, with amazing splendor, essentially. And then, as the ship was going and going, not gone, due to the weight of the ship, she sank into the mud about 27 feet out. A huge bummer for each and every person gathered around, including the crew. So, moving on to 2 days later, we asked the people to give us 2 days. Put the pitchforks away. Don't kill us, don't hurt us. Give us 2 days, we'll try this again. 2 days later, we pulled the ship back out. Made the ramp a little steeper. She wasn't about to hit light speed, but better than nothing, right? So we tried again, kind of like Groundhog's Day for those of you that get that reference. Alright, so now we cracked the bottle across the bow, kicked the keel blocks out in spectacular fashion once again, and then the ship is going a little further, but not quite gone yet because the ramp, due to the weight of the ship again, broke from under the pressure of the weight of the ship. And that was about 31 feet out. So, failing twice was not really a good look for us. They said the ship was cursed, she was never going to hit the water, we should scrap her and start over, but we were not ready to give up quite yet. We decided maybe we were going about it the wrong way. Maybe instead of trying to get the ship to the water, we were going to wait for the water to come to the ship. And that's where it gets a little more exciting, because we wait till the next lunar high tide, when the water would have been its absolute highest in the harbor. So, as you're walking with me this way, we'll be transitioning into one of the more famous battles of the ship. So, how did we actually launch it? Okay, lunar high tide came by on the fated 21st of October, just like today. Alright, and so, nobody was around though this time. It was just us. And of course, we couldn't send a memo to the president saying, 3rd time's the charm. It was just us, under the cover of darkness, cloak and dagger style. Very quietly cracked the bottle across the bow, silently moved the keel blocks out, and then very majestically the ship was borne into the water, ready to defend her country. But nobody was around to celebrate this. So we decided to wake Boston up in the best way we knew how. You guessed it, cannon fire. And so we put a one of our guns on top of Copp's Hill, let a rip, and it just echoed across all of Boston. And just like that, everybody was woken up, and then they came out to celebrate the birthing of the USS Constitution. But that is just the beginning, an exciting beginning at that, in a history that we now know today as being undefeated. So, to talk to you about the battle versus the HMS Guerrière, please welcome Stephen Wicker.
Now, we're obviously on a warship, outfitted with 44 plus guns, just like the one you see here, a 32-pound carronade, manned to 7 to 9 men at a time. It was in the Battle of the HMS Guerrière that we earned one of our more famous nicknames, Old Ironsides. When the War of 1812 started, we were going against an armada of unfathomable proportions, the British Navy. The sun never set on the British Navy. There were so many ships in the British Navy, they were all around the world, and we were such a new country that going against such an astronomically big Navy seemed almost impossible. And for a while, the crew believed that too on the USS Constitution. We were under the command of Captain Isaac Cole when the Battle of the Guerrière happened. Right before that even happened, we'd escaped the Halifax Squadron. 5 British ships chased us back into port into Boston. By the skin of our teeth, we got away. They bore a red British ensign unique to that squadron. We made it back into port, and Isaac Cole was having none of it. He wanted this ship to have a victory because he knew our country needed the victory. So he tells the men that we're going to go back up to Nova Scotia to find one of those British ships and take it on in a one-on-one engagement. 2 weeks into that, we get lucky. This lookout off the port end of the ship in the mizzenmost mast cries out, "Sail ho up to port side!" All the men rise up on the ship. Nobody's asleep anymore. The gun deck and spar deck are now bustling with action, with 7 to 9 men arming these carronades on this deck, and ship's boys, only aged 8 to 16 years of age, taking sand and water and throwing it on the decks for the traction so the men don't slip as the tides bump the ship side to side with the recoils of the guns. It's organized chaos on the USS Constitution. We're all set up and ready to go, and we hear a faint boom in the distance, like distant thunder. The Guerrière's open fire to Constitution at 1,800 yards plus. It goes down to 17, 16. The shots are now getting closer and closer to the ship, and yet we are told not to fire our guns until Isaac Cole at the helm specifically tells us to open fire himself. And we're down to 1,000 yards now, 800. Closer and closer we're getting to this ship, and the men's anxiety is at an all-time high. One sailor was quoted of saying, "The needle of death swung on a pendulum above all our heads, and on whose head nobody would know it would land on." That was the intensity on the ship as we got closer and closer. And finally, at only 25 yards away, we were finally told to open fire on the British ship Guerrière, to do a rolling broadside on them forward to aft. Sequentially, one after the other, the guns went off. Boom, boom, boom! Forward to aft. The guns went off. It looked like smoke. It came down from the sky and rested between both ships, creating a literal cloud of war between both ships. And just 25 yards away, all the sailors on our ships could not see the British sailors on the other ship. And amongst all this, the ringing of their ears, the gassing of their eyes, we hear someone cry out on their ship, "Huzzah! Our ship, huzzah! Her sides are made of iron." An unnamed sailor jumped right up onto the taffrail, looked directly at our captain at the helm, and said, "Huzzah! Her sides are made of iron." And the name stuck right on the spot. Our sides are like iron, the men said. And this situation was only going to get better for the Constitution crew, because when the smoke settled, we had noticed their mizzenmost mast had broken off and fell into the water, steering their ship out of control and causing them to go in directions they don't want to go into. Isaac Cole gets the fantastic idea of getting the men at the helm to steer the ship right in front of the Guerrière and perform a broadside right down their forward end of the ship to the aft end. We're halfway through this broadside. The guns are halfway dispersed, and then the British cut away their mizzenmost mast. Our ship now colliding with their ship, their bowsprit entangling with our spanker. We're left now with one option, a boarding party to the British ship, led by William Sharp Bush. jumps up onto the taffrail, pulls out his cutlass, and says, "Shall I board her, sir?" But as he does that, he's shot right in the spot to become the first Marine officer to die in naval combat history out in the seas. It was a valiant moment for him, but Isaac Cole sees his first Marine lieutenant fall down and orders the men to break free from their ship, cutting the rigging between both of their ships and beating them broadside to broadside. He didn't stand a chance. We turned a once proud frigate into a two-masted brig, to a one-masted sloop of war, to finally just a canoe. Dead in the water with nowhere to go, she struck her colors to us, making it a huge statement that we can take on this British Armada as the United States Navy. That was the first commanding officer we had aboard the ship, Isaac Cole, but we had so many others, one of which was William Bainbridge, who led us in the battle of the HMS Java. Seaman Young here will be turning it over to him.
Captain Bainbridge takes over soon after onto a hugely vigorous battle. The battle was crazy. It was recorded on all sides that Constitution was losing this battle. I'm referring to the Java battle right off the coast of Brazil. Right off the coast of Brazil, Constitution's at battle, and Captain Bainbridge is standing next to the helm with his first lieutenant, thinking of ways to make this ship maneuver and take us home with a victory. Captain Bainbridge asks his first lieutenant for any suggestions. The first lieutenant says, "Sir, my suggestion is that we surrender the ship. If we surrender the ship, less men will die. We don't want to lose more men." Captain Bainbridge says, "What? We will not be giving our ship up." Captain Bainbridge had lost 2 ships before this battle, and he was not that excited about making a 3rd loss in his record. So he ordered the first lieutenant to go on and figure it out. So the first lieutenant leaves the captain at the helm as he goes off talking to the gun team, talking to the sail team, talking about the best way to maneuver this great vessel into a victory. Just as the first lieutenant is speaking to someone, he hears a boom, crack-a-lack. He turns around and he sees that the helm has been blown clear off the ship. He comes back over and he finds Captain Bainbridge strewn across the deck. He's been shot in the hip and he has a giant piece of wooden shrapnel in the other thigh. He cannot walk. Captain Bainbridge is on the deck. He looks like he's about to be out of the fight. So the first lieutenant says, "Sir, you've been promptly relieved. I've got it from here." Captain Bainbridge, still on the deck, says, "What? No!" The first lieutenant says, "Sir, you cannot command this naval vessel while it's in battle right now if you cannot walk." Captain Bainbridge, seeing a way out, says, "I can't walk. That's the problem. Get me 2 seamen." So 2 seamen have the pleasure of carrying Captain Bainbridge around as he continues to lead the ship because he refuses to turn over command. He gives 100 men permission to go through the wardroom and into the tiller room to steer the ship by hand. They are pulling the ship following verbal commands. 20 degrees starboard, 20 degrees port, pulling the ship. He comes back up. They have maneuvered their way into a position where it's not exactly safe for them to fire on the Java. And it's not exactly safe for the Java to fire back on us. So the first lieutenant is right around. He goes to the quarterdeck and he orders the quarterdeck watch to lower our American flag to surrender to the British ship, the Java. Lucky for us, Captain Bainbridge and his first lieutenant got their wires crossed. As their wires get crossed, Captain Bainbridge orders the gun crew permission to fire. He orders them to fire, and they fire all the way down the side of the Java. Boom, 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 boom. The first lieutenant is absolutely confused at this time. He does not know if we fired on the Java or if the Java fired on us. He just knows that the ship is rocking. His ears are ringing. He can't see because there's gun smoke everywhere. Just as the smoke begins to clear, he sees the British ensign going down to surrender to the American vessel Constitution. In an awesome moment of glee, Captain Bainbridge orders the ship to pull in close, and he says, "Go over there and get everything we need." The sailors go there and they pick up the extra grog. They pick up the extra water. They pick up extra ammunition. And they come back and they say, "Sir, we've got everything we need." Captain Bainbridge turns about as red as a human being can safely get, and he goes, "Ah! You fools! Go back over there and get the helm." They had shot off our helm, so they go over and they dismount the helm off the Java, and they come over and they tie it on board Constitution. Constitution has the helm of the Java. The Java does not have a helm. The Java cannot safely get back. We are not in any condition to tow them, so we sink the Java right there at sea. And that was a game changer in naval combat. At that time, the British Navy decided they would never go frigate against an American vessel ever again. the fight would only ever be 2-1. So from that moment forward, that helped solidify our place as a naval power, and that is Constitution history. But it's not over yet because the war isn't over. Seaman Tomic, please take it away.
Throughout the War of 1812, Constitution maintained her nickname of Ironsides and kept up as a fierce competitor to any ship or ships that she came across out in the deep blue. In the early of February 1815, Constitution's captain, Charles Stewart, learned news of a treaty of peace that was being signed. But instead of just returning home with his crew, he knew that the war was not over yet until that treaty, known later as the Treaty of Peace, was to be ratified. So Constitution set sail off into the mid-Atlantic, eventually cruising off the west coast of Portugal. And later, on February 20th, 1815, Constitution spotted not one, but 2 sails out in the distance. Constitution set chase and sniped one of the 2 ships with her 18-pound bow chasers. But both ships attempted to completely avoid any action until Constitution and her crew descended rapidly onto the HMS Cyan and the HMS Levant. Shortly after 6 p.m., an exchange of broadsides began. But Constitution, as she was originally intended to when designed, outmanned and outgunned both ships. Each ship individually, she had more manpower and more firing power than each ship individually. Now, just shortly into this exchange of broadsides, Charles Stewart commands his men to cease fire so we can wait for all the smoke to clear to figure out what the situation is. Only for Charles Stewart to learn that the Levant was getting in position to fire off a deadly broadside onto the Constitution. But Stewart knew his crew, he knew his men, and he knew his ship, just like every captain before him. And he ordered his men to execute a set of skillful maneuvers to bring us parallel to Levant, firing off a deadly broadside onto Levant, and then attempting a maneuver called backwinding, letting the wind push against the back sides of our masts, risking snapping the masts in half, a risk he knew he was taking. But that brought us abreast to the HMS Cyan and allowing us to fire another broadside onto the Cyan. Luckily for us, the HMS Cyan could no longer hold up. And 45 minutes into this engagement, the HMS Cyan struck her colors and surrendered to the Constitution. By the time the Constitution took control of the HMS Cyan and put a prize crew onto the Cyan, the Levant, little did we know, had sailed away to do repairs, to come back and attempt to do another exchange of broadsides with the Constitution. But the Constitution would not give up. It was at this point that the Constitution chased the Levant into the sunset, only for the Levant to eventually surrender just after 10 p.m. Now, this 4-hour engagement caused widespread damage onto the HMS Cyan and the HMS Levant. But the Constitution remained strong, and she remained intact with minimal damage to her crew and very minimal damage to her strong sides. When the Constitution pulled into port in Portugal, Charles Stewart learned of the Treaty of Ghent's ratification just days prior to the HMS Cyan and Levant engagement. But well within the time late clause, understanding the difficulties of communicating the War of 1812's ending to all of the ships out at sea. It was at this point that the Constitution returned home with a hero's welcome, because she is a monument on her own and a monument of our nation's victories.
So with that, in conclusion, what is one thing throughout all of history that allows us as people to connect with each other? I believe one thing above many other things would be the term struggle. The Constitution has seen her fair share of struggles. Well, what I'd like you to take away from us today is not the fact that the Constitution has lots of guns, not the fact that she's made of really strong wood, not the fact that she has defeated 33 plus other ships in battle, but the fact that she has persisted through struggle. Even taking that today, you can create long-term memories. And what's a long-term memory if not just information fused with emotion? So, I'm begging you, as a humble sailor in the United States Navy, to allow yourself to feel the emotion of inspiration and motivation right now. Take that with you each and every day. And remember that the Constitution started out with two failed launch attempts, and then went on to be an undefeated beast of the seas. So we all know this phrase, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And even at that, the Constitution's not done yet, because she's still here. Being essentially representing what it means to be a true fighter. So every morning that you wake up and you start putting on your socks and you start getting dressed, getting ready to do what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not, you are actually winning a fight at a point in which others have given up. So don't forget to give yourself credit for those small victories, because it's small victories like that that allowed the USS Constitution that we stand on right now to still be present and still inspiring hearts and minds all over the entire world. So with that, once again, today we are celebrating 222 years of inspiration, 222 years of power, 222 years of pride, difficulty, struggle, and victory. And with that, we say, on the count of 3, we'll be wishing her happy birthday. 1, 2, 3, happy birthday!
Constitution!
Once again, thank you very much for joining us with this live event. We hope you enjoyed it, and we wish you a fine Navy Day. Thanks, guys.